Right before we jump into this video, if you'd like me to send you a free guide to capturing motion in low light situations, just look for this orange box over on FroKnowsPhoto.com, put your name, email address in it, hit send it. I'm going to send you that guide for free. Jared Polin, FroKnowsPhoto.com, and this is a review of the Viltrox 85mm f1.8 lens. Now, I use this on a Sony E Mount body, but they do make a version for the Nikon Z mount as well as the Fuji X mount. Now, in terms of the Sony version, this is the second version they've put out so far, with not terribly too many differences other than the weight changing between version 1 and version 2. Now, what did I go and photograph with this lens? Well, I took it out to a professional bowling event where I had all access to photograph the best bowlers in the world. I could get up close and personal. I could lay down on the floor and get some nice pictures of shoes. And I also took it out to a Harlem Globetrotters game, which I do recommend if they ever come to your town anywhere in the world, you go check them out because it's a really good couple of hours of entertainment for you and the kids, and you might get some good pictures if you're allowed to take your camera in there. Now, this is one of the first fourth-party type lenses that I'm really reviewing. I say fourth party because I consider right now third party to be things like Sigma and Tamron, Tokina, which I consider to be more like 3.5 party because they've been around a while, but these are newer. Viltrox is a newer company putting out autofocusing lenses. A lot of these new lens companies are out of China, but they're not doing a bad job. They're creating lenses that feel pretty good in the hands. Like when I take this 85mm and put it in the hands, I don't look at it and feel it and be like, wow, this feels like a piece of plastic or a piece of junk. It doesn't feel like a piece of plastic or a piece of junk. It feels perfectly fine in the hands. It feels very similar to something like a Sony 85 1.8 would feel. And that's a good thing. It feels like it's metal, it feels like it's milled nicely, and it feels nice and balanced and light in the hands. It weighs in at only 1.06 pounds or 484 grams, which isn't bad at all. Now, this lens doesn't have any form of image stabilization built in, so you just have to rely on what's in the body. That's not that big of a deal, but there's really nothing else on this lens. There's no buttons, there's no dials. You just have your manual focus ring right here, which feels nice and smooth. Now, if you're going to be shooting stills or shooting video, this is a good lens for you to consider because 85 is a very nice range. Now, 85 on a full frame body is of course an 85mm lens, but if you put it onto a cropped sensor body, you're looking at the equivalent of 127.5mm, which is nice for portraits. It's going to be good for interviews if you're locked off shooting video, and that's really what you're thinking about here. You're thinking about a lens that gives you that f1.8 because it lets you open up to let more light in. But the biggest questions are, how's the autofocus? Is it accurate? Is it fast shooting? Does it get the job done? And that's what I'm going to answer throughout this video. Now, as you can see here, it does come with a lens hood. I always recommend that you put the lens hood on like this. Going to protect your lens ever so slightly in case you knock it on something, but also cut down on stray light. If you're not using the lens hood, it's a bayonet style lens hood, meaning it locks on like this. Now, a lot of newcomers, you leave the lens hood like this when you're shooting, it doesn't look that good. Just flip it around. You're gonna look a hell of a lot more professional. You know, I have a lot of room to talk looking like this, but it's gonna look better with the lens hood all the way out like this. I use it indoors, I use it outdoors, I use it all the time. The only time I won't use a lens hood is if I might get in someone's way, or if I'm shooting, say, a professional hockey game and I don't want it to fall on the ice by accident, I'm not gonna use a lens hood. Now, in terms of the filter thread, you have a 72mm filter thread, so I'm not a big fan of putting clear filters on a lens of any kind, especially one of these fourth-party lenses. You don't need to spend the money on that type of filter. But if you're gonna be shooting video and you're gonna be outside, you might wanna look into a variable ND filter, anywhere from 2 to 5 stops or 5 to 9 stops. That's gonna help you in situations where you still wanna shoot at f1.8, but need to cut down on the amount of light coming in so that you can shoot your video. So keep that in mind if you're gonna be shooting video. Now, in terms of aperture blades, you've got 9 aperture blades in here. You also have STM motors, which should help give you nice and smooth autofocus. But let's jump into some of these images. The first place I wanna take you is out to a professional bowling event. Now, are these guys moving that fast? The answer is no, they're not moving that fast. But what I'm looking for is how is the autofocus for finding the eye? Is that nice and sharp? Well, let's jump into a portrait right here of Kyle Troop, who's looks like he's rubbing one of his balls. He is. He's rubbing and polishing one of his balls. So let's zoom in on his face right here. Yeah, you can see that it hit his back eye. It looks perfectly fine. That's what I care about. I don't care if it's a third-party lens, a first-party lens, a 15th-party lens. If it's able to find the subject accurately and consistently and be able to track them pretty good and get solid shots time and time again, I don't care if it's cheap, I don't care if it's expensive. If it gets the job done, that's all that matters. Now, this is what you're getting at f1.8. As I move over to get down low on the ground, I'm using inanimate objects in the foreground to create some out of focus area so that you can see Kyle nice and sharp. Look at the fro, look at the Kyle Troop on the back of his shirt. He's nice and sharp, but the table and everything is out of focus. This water bottle, which I didn't even notice, is out of focus, and it's not really a distraction. But if you had to shoot at, say, 4.5 or 5.6 with a crappier lens that didn't open up to 1.8, then it's gonna be more of a distraction. But beyond that, I'm at ISO 4000 here. At 1.8, that's tremendous. Because if I was at, say, f4, I would have to be at like 12,800 ISO to try and get the same type of exposure, and it's just not gonna look as good. One of the reasons you get a 1.8 is so that not only can you get a very nice looking depth of field to isolate your subject, but also be able to drop that ISO so that you can have cleaner and cleaner images. Let me jump in here real quick because I want to show you our custom Lightroom presets from FroPack 4 in action on this photo right here, starting with Blue's Clues, followed by Brooklyn, C41, Copper Tone, High C, Kaleidoscope, Saltwater Taffy, Thick, and Wet Hot American Summer. But my all-time favorite preset from FroPack 1 with one click is Skittles, and it goes boom. But check this out, exclusive to FroPack 4 are 4 custom adaptive Lightroom presets called X1, X2, X3, and X4. Let's check out Face Enhance called X1. With one click, it creates all of these masks for you that you don't have to do anything. So let's click on facial skin. We could raise the amount or lower the amount. So you can see before and after, and you can make it work any way you want. So look, if you want to speed up your raw workflow, give yourself a great starting point, or you're just tired of people's presets sucking, ours don't suck. We created 14 all new custom Lightroom presets that you can check out right now at FroKnowsPhoto.com/FroPack4. While you're over there, you can play with the sliders to see the befores and the afters. And if you decide to pick them up right now, they are currently on sale. Or if you want to get the Grand Slam bundle that is FroPack 1, 2, 3, and 4, you can save even more. Now, let's get back to the video. All right, now let's jump over to another portrait here. We've got Tommy Jones. It's not unusual to be loved by anyone. Do-do-do-do-do-do. Look at this. Look how sharp he looks from the side here. I'm at f1.8. I shot everything at 1.8. You may not always shoot at 1.8, but my point in doing it at 1.8 throughout this entire review was to say if it can hit at 1.8, it can hit at everything else. That's what I'm talking about. Nice separation from the background. You've got a light above his head out there that's out of focus. Looks perfectly fine. Nothing about this image yells to me that I'm using a Viltrox, right? Nothing says that, oh, you're not using the best of the best of the best with honor, sir. I don't care what you shoot with. If you get great results and great images, it doesn't matter what you shoot with. And so far, I'm very happy with what I'm getting out of this Viltrox lens. Now let's move on to a full body type of portrait. Now this is Belmo just standing here. He just got done throwing something. I don't think he was happy. And by throwing something, I mean he like rolled the ball down the lanes. He wasn't angry. But I zoom in here. He looks sharp. Nice separation from the background. That's what we're looking for with that 1.8. Nice full body portrait. Oh, look at his shoes. Aren't his shoes really cool? Oh, speaking of his shoes, I like to get down on the ground and get low to try to find different angles. And so that's what I did after he was sitting down to focus on just his Belmo shoe. Belmo branded shoe right there with his two-handed logo silhouette. It looks great. The background at 1.8 being totally blown out and obliterated, fantastic. I really, really like this 85 feel. I think 85 was great on the full frame body, and it's going to be very nice on a crop sensor body as well. We've got a couple more from the bowling center, including my buddy Dom Barrett here, who's signing his scorecard. And yes, his finger is bleeding because bowling is a dangerous sport for your hands. These guys are throwing like 40 games across a couple of days. It does take a toll, but that is super sharp. Nice, narrow, shallow depth of field, looks absolutely fantastic. And I want to cut to one more of Kyle Troop just giving me the peace sign. His eye looks great. That's what I'm looking for. It hit. Now, how's the autofocus? Well, let's go out to the Harlem Globetrotters game because those guys are running around, those guys are slam dunking, and I've got to track them in an action situation. So we start off with a shot like this. Settings-wise, I'm at 1/3200th of a second at f1.8 at only 2500 ISO. Let's zoom in on this guy. It tracked him very well. Is it perfect every single time? It's not as good as the highest end 85 1.2 that you would get from Sony that they don't actually make yet. So it's not as good as an 85 1.2 from Canon or from Nikon, but those are also $20-some $100 lenses, and this isn't. But it hit more often than it didn't. And it was able to track the subjects, and that's great. I think Sony has a great autofocusing system, and it works really well with the Viltrox lenses that I've used. Another one of a basketball player going up for a slam dunk. We've got, what's it say, Snake? I guess it says Snake on the back of his shirt. He's nice and sharp, or sharp enough for my taste, especially if you have to zoom in super far to see if it's in focus or super tight, then it's absolutely there. If you're just gonna pixel peep and find imperfections, you're gonna find imperfections, but really happy. Now, Globy is the Globetrotters mascot. He's running around off here to the side. Freeze him, nice action, 1/2500th of a second because he's running down the court. Nice and sharp, colors look fine. I'm really happy with the results that I was able to get from this lens. Now let me show you something where they turned off the lights and just put a spotlight into the middle of the court. This so happens to be the Philadelphia Eagles coach, Nick Sirianni. They pulled him out of the crowd here to do some sort of dancing thing at center court. This is where that 1.8 comes into play. You open up in lower light situations so that your ISO can be kept down so you have cleaner images. I'm really happy with how this looks. Nothing about this screams fourth party lens. Nothing screams Viltrox here. And that is a great thing. And what makes it even better is the price. This lens comes in at $399. That is insane that you have an 85mm f1.8 that's autofocus for $399. Now, why is that insane? Because Sony's version of their 85 is $600, and don't spend the money on that Zeiss lens. It's not worth it at all. Now, there are other fourth-party lens options here. Yongnuo makes an 85 1.8 for $345. A company by the name of Astra Hori, who I've never heard of, makes a $279 version autofocus lens. I don't know. Maybe I need to try it out. And Tokina makes an 85 for $399. You have a lot of options, but for $399 to get an 85mm lens that's autofocus and that does a great job for Sony, whether it's for stills or it's for video, I don't think you can go wrong with something like this. Let me cut in here real quick and let you know that this video is brought to you by Squarespace. If you're looking to build your very own online portfolio, use what I've been using for close to 15 years at this point for my personal website because it's simple, easy, affordable, and I don't need to know coding. To get your 14-day free trial, head on over to squarespace.com/FroKnowsPhoto. If you decide that it's for you, use the code FroKnowsPhoto at checkout to get 10% off your first order. There's two more tests we got to test out to see what we think. There's the sniff test and the wind tunnel test. Sniff test. Oh, it smells like ball polish. Man, do I love the smell of ball polish. So good. Wind tunnel test. Woo! Definitely passed the wind tunnel test because it didn't get blown off the table. All right, who's this lens for? Look, if you're not a top-of-the-line professional, which I wouldn't recommend this for the top-of-the-line professional that's making money, because you make money with the more expensive stuff. And yeah, is the more expensive stuff going to be better in some situations? Sure, it might be more accurate from time to time. You might get better sequential shots on your Sony cameras. in terms of focus with one of the better lenses. But I didn't feel like I missed things at the basketball game because the autofocus missed. I was able to find the shots that I needed, even rapid fire shooting or just taking a couple of shots at a time. If you're someone who's just getting into photo or video and you don't have a lot of money to spend, but you want to get a 1.8 and you don't want to use those variable aperture lenses, I mean, for $400, this is a steal. I was really happy with the results from this Viltrox lens, so that's what I have to say about it. If you guys have one of these or have any questions, you can leave them down below in the comments. But thank you guys very much for watching. Jared, Polin, FroKnowsPhoto.com. See ya.